Were you ever concerned that the Queen was going to get taken out?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, in fact, we have a former New Zealand SAS guy. He was like, Josh, you and me, we're going to Jakarta and we're going to wrap these guys up. And I was like, wait, whoa, I'm a journalist. I cannot be party to murder or physical. Like, I mean, even though like part of me is like, wow, that would be a great podcast episode.
That and so much more coming right up on today's episode of The Pod Spotter. You're listening to The Pod Spotter. I'm Zach Robidas. There are so many podcasts out there, and that is why we are here. We're going to listen to all of them, and then you're going to decide which ones you want to listen to after we break them down for you. Every Monday, we're going to talk to the creators and the hosts, and we're going to play clips, and we're going to have some laughs, and we hope you find it entertaining. And if you do, subscribe to our little pod. Visit thepodspotter.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all those other social media platforms, and you can find extra content there and information on upcoming shows. Then you like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's really a pleasure. I've been screening hundreds of podcasts. In 2018, I booked my first job as a series regular on a brand new television show shooting in Los Angeles. I had no idea how many episodes I would be in, how much I would be paid, or even when the first day of shooting was. All I knew was I booked it, and that was enough. I jumped in my car and I drove across country from New York to LA. Somewhere around Ohio, my agent called, and I told him what I was doing. After a long, bewildered pause, he said, "You know, we don't even have a contract yet, right?" Didn't matter. A lifelong dream was being fulfilled. I couldn't sit around and wait anymore. It wouldn't be until 2 days later at an Airbnb in Nebraska that I finally got the call. The deal was done. The ink was dry. Report to work in 4 days. This business makes people do dumb things. For a yes in Hollywood, sane, rational people often forego common sense once the carrot gets dangled. Just ask the hundreds of victims that you can learn about in the brand new podcast, Chameleon, Hollywood Con Queen. In season 1 of the true crime drama by Campside Media creators Josh Dean and Vanessa Grigoriadis take you through one of the longest, strangest cons in history, one that targets Hollywood's dreamers, the working class, the C-listers, the me's, damn it. Joining me to discuss the Con Queen and the scariest podcast I have listened to all year is Josh Dean. Welcome, Josh. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing the pod with us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to talk about this. You're the first interviewer / potential subject of the con that I've spoken with.
This is me. I am the target of your con. I was so happy to hear this and to sort of, help get the word out about this thing. This is my friends that have been targeted by this con. These are my people, the working class, the day players.
I feel like I'm been fighting for justice for all of these people who I never knew before.
The Cassandra of the day player. Thank you very much for doing what you do. And just congratulations to you and Vanessa and everybody at Campside for just knocking it out of the park with your first season and for completing it. You just wrapped yesterday, yes?
The final episode of sort of the primary narrative arc. I mean, I'm guessing there'll be some updates. We're going to talk a little bit, I'm sure, about what's happened, but we'll have some short updates. But basically, yeah, the season, as we imagined it, has been completed. And considering we started it not knowing what the ending would be, I feel pretty good about where we landed. So, yeah.
And Josh, just so we have it, could I get you to introduce yourself to the folks as you would at a Hollywood cocktail party?
Okay. So my name is Josh Dean. I am a journalist, author, and podcaster, now also co-founder of Campside Media, a podcast company. We make serialized narrative shows, so the kind of shows like Chameleon.
And you do that with the woman whose name I butchered in the intro, but practiced all week, Vanessa Gregoriadis. Yes,
Yes, you nailed it that time. So
that time
yeah,
was
my
fine.
I referred to her as my co-detective. I mean, because I'm the primary voice on the show, but Vanessa appears a lot. She's obviously very well-known narrative journalist, author herself, and also a co-founder of Campside Media.
And what is the sleazy Hollywood elevator pitch for this podcast for people who have yet to add it to their library?
So basically, for the past at least 5 and probably 7 years, someone out there or some nefarious group of individuals has been pretending to be powerful Hollywood women. So executives and producers and directors, like your Amy Pascal's and your Kathleen Kennedy's, Stacey Snider's, and basically calling, the people you're talking about, below the line, day players, makeup artists, and saying, oh my God, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I, Amy Pascal, have discovered you, mid-level makeup artist, and I want you to come to Indonesia tomorrow and run the makeup department on this gigantic blockbuster movie that I'm making. And just cover your own expenses because, of course, we're going to reimburse you. It's just happening really fast and we need you here. And then, of course, there's no movie. And the person on the phone is not Amy Pascal.
Oh my gosh. Well, it certainly applies to my life, but anyone with a sort of healthy appetite for upward mobility can learn a lot from this podcast. I think it's applicable to many different mediums, not just, for actors, but let's have a listen.
They're out $50K.
The money has never hit our account. So, what's gone wrong there?
Look, can you ask that to my finance? I will talk to her.
This person is like a master impersonator.
I'm not in China.
I know you told me you're in London.
I am in London, but now I'm currently in Stockholm.
Having worked a couple of impersonation cases, it was immediately apparent that we weren't dealing with the same type of person, basically. Very smart, multiple languages, master of accents, highly educated.
Whoever does this is a genius.
Somebody who's sort of a psychopath.
Check what's next. Go and cash your bad checks.
Bad checks. Love the song. How'd you get that song?
Oh my God. When you start at a company and you're not a business person and there's lots of things you don't recognize, realize how hard they will be. One is clearing music. So I heard that song, I think just on satellite radio, and I immediately was like, that's the theme. It was one of those moments bolts out of the sky. And then of course for the next 3 months I drove myself completely nuts trying to clear it. Talk about what a brutal and opaque process that is.
I can't tell you how many times I've been on set and tried to just hum something or whistle, and they're like, whoa, are you did I hear you humming Chumbawamba? Because that's I need to ask you off the bat, have you ever been the victim of a con? Is that what is fueling this? Have you do you have some deep hatred for con artists? What's the last con you fell for?
I am, proud to say I have not, but I also, have an obsession with con artists. And as I think we get into it, at one point in the series, because I was so tired of people saying to me, how could anybody fall for this? What a bunch of losers. I was just this is so easy to fall for. And I may not have fallen for it, but the example I give on the show is Vanessa and I, we've each been freelance journalists for a long time. So I've been working with dozens of entities around the world who hire me on the phone or an email. Any one of those could have been a con artist. I mean, I have gotten on a plane to fly to a foreign country without ever meeting someone in person because let's say, National Geographic emails you, an editor from, you think it's National Geographic, sends you an email and says, hey, we'd love for you to go to Ghana and write a story about so-and-so. As a journalist, it's not going to pop into my mind to be let me scrutinize that email address. Is it really nationalgeographic.org? Is it exactly the email that it should be? I'm going to be hell yes, I'm going to Ghana. It could have been a scam. And that's I think that's really what this boils down to. It's any of us are susceptible, especially those of us who work in the gig economy.
I got to tell you, I was dropping off my laptop to get fixed, and the FedEx employee came out, and they were like, hey, we can save some time if you just give it to me. Do you want a receipt? If you don't want a receipt, you don't have to wait in line. I was like, great. Okay, here you go. And I'm listening to your pod, and I'm like, can I trust this person? Wait a minute. They just had a red shirt on, and I just gave them my laptop. And so because of your podcast, I then stood there and made sure this person was employee and like watched them go through FedEx and process the computer. Has working on this for the past year, two years, has it ruined your faith in people?
It's sad because you don't want to be like completely cynical about the world. It's nice to be wide-eyed a little bit. And especially in Hollywood, I mean, better than me that like the story that's sold to you and to the world about Hollywood is that like everyone is just waiting for a break, and that break could come at any time. Maybe you're like at a shoe store and somebody spots you, or maybe somebody hears your voice on a podcast and it's like, I love that guy. And that's the story that's being sold to these people, which is just like, the con artist was very good at saying like, oh, I heard about you from other influential person who is like tangentially related to your world. Or I saw you when you did that little appearance in that one movie. I know it wasn't a lot, but I thought there was really something in you. There was like, and I mean, you tell me like, that doesn't seem weird, right? That's the thing that you hope happens all the time when someone sees like 5 minutes of your work and it's like, I want an hour, or here's you talking and says like, you want a national radio show, right? This is just how entertainment works. We all hope that someone is going to discover us.
For sure. I mean, it is a pack your lunch and take it to work kind of business for the majority of people that I know that are still at it, still making a living at it. You just, you just grind and you audition and you go. But there is that fantasy, as you said, that at any moment this can change for you overnight. And it does happen, as you talk about on your podcast, but it's just not something that you should expect. Great if it does, but if it doesn't, the majority of us are just plodding along, auditioning,
Completely.
What does this story look like when it comes across your desk, though? And what elements of it were there at the beginning that made you say, okay, let's do this one?
Like, I want this to have an amazing backstory, and in a sense it does. But like the start of the story is going to sound so rote. And like, so basically it started with the call from my manager, but it wasn't like that was, here's an amazing podcast you have to host, even though that's kind of the context. It was more like, something weird happened to another guy that I know, and you should probably talk to him. So I got on a call with a different manager at my management company who had been in an exercise class with a character you meet in episode 1 of the podcast, Eddie, and this other producer. And they had both kind of gotten wrapped up in this friend of theirs fell for it. And so I got on the call with these guys, and they're like, this crazy thing happened to a friend of ours. It relates to this much bigger story. And I just knew on that call, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And they played a little tape for me of a woman who was purporting to be Dee Dee Gardner, who is Brad Pitt's partner in Plan B, like a major powerhouse producer. Not sounding exactly like Dee Dee Gardner, but like, if you don't know what Dee Dee Gardner, and I don't know what Dee Dee Gardner sounds, I mean, maybe Brad Pitt knows what Dee Dee Gardner is. I would hope he does.
Yeah.
But like most of us, who she is, but like, again, if she called me right now in the middle of this interview, I would probably be like, oh yeah, this is Dee Dee Gardner. Like, not because I'm so important, but like I'm adjacent enough to her universe where like she might call me.
So this just is it exists as an idea, and a manager just says, here's something that's floating around in the zeitgeist. Do you want this?
Basically, but not in like it's a job, like here's a job that's being offered to you. It's like, you're a journalist, and I had done this other podcast called The Clearing, which was very successful.
Yeah, and too successful, which is why we can't cover that here. We don't just cover the up and comers.
It was too good. So he knew that I was like interested in an ambitious investigative podcast, like doing stories that were going to take a lot of work and a lot of time and investigative muscle. And so it was more like, you should talk to these guys because I think there's something great in this. And, this is a really meta story in the sense that, like, of course they thought like, this is a really great Hollywood story. And I'm sure they're thinking, maybe we'll adapt this into a TV show at some point. But they were also thinking, our friend got screwed. He's one of 1,000 people who got screwed. This is really bad for our industry. Maybe you can help stop it. Maybe you can like help get the word out, because the reality is it had been going on for all these years. It had been covered in Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, Vanity Fair, and yet it kept working.
Could you walk us through the con? Walk folks that don't know the con. Walk through role play with me, and I am the actor, and you are the con queen. Just walk us through the bullet points?
Do I have to do the Dee Dee Gardner role?
Hope that you do. Do your best Dee Dee or Doug Lyman, please.
Oh boy, this is hard.
I get a call. I get a phone call. You don't actually have to, but it starts with me getting a phone call.
Exactly. And the phone call is typically from either a studio head or a producer or some woman whose name, if you're in the industry, you would know. Or in a few cases, like Eddie, it was Dee Backish, who is the wife of Bob Backish, CEO of Viacom. So even if you don't know, she says, "Hi, I'm Dee Backish. My husband is Bob Backish, CEO of Viacom," and you're in entertainment. You're like, "Oh, okay. Wow, okay. That's the kind of person." But I'm working on this, I'm getting into production now, and I'm working on this huge movie that's being filmed in Indonesia. It's an action adventure fantasy, and we've seen your work. And like someone that you know, so someone who would be on your IMDb page or someone who you are known to associate with, I would likely drop that person's name and say, so-and-so who you worked with on this project told me that you're like an underutilized talent and I should really probably make you the lead of this movie. So I'm like looking to elevate people. Like, so it's you and The Rock are going to be in this movie.
Okay.
And
I'm in.
And actually, I mean, it sounds like a funny example. That actually did happen. There was a case with an actor we use on episode 6, chapter 6, who was offered allegedly that he was going to be the co-lead with The Rock in this, I believe it's a Marvel Universe movie, Black Adam.
Yeah.
So basically, I call you and I say, you're going to get this opportunity to lead this film, and you need to get to Indonesia. That's the catch, is that we're like behind schedule a little bit, and my director's already over there, or the DP's there, and I want you to get there and scout some locations and meet the crew. And like, I know this is unconventional, but like this, I am unconventional. Like, I'm new to producing, so just bear with me, and it's gonna like just completely change your life. And
and I foot the bill. I front the money, and this is not uncommon in our industry. I pay for things, and then I save receipts.
There are cases here where like agents and managers were looped in because, like, let's say, these agents and managers, some of them caught on. Others were like, and let's use the Doug Lyman example. In a few cases, when the con artist was impersonating director Doug Lyman, they would say, well, Doug's a little old school. His dad was in the business. Like, he might operate differently, but like, it's Doug Lyman. So just pay for your plane ticket. I'm sure you're going to get reimbursed. Like, this is not how I want you to work as your agent. Like, you should not be fronting costs, but like, it's Doug Lyman. So let's just do it this one time. And like, I'm sure it's going to be totally fine. Or if it's like Dee Backish, an agent or manager might be like, I've never worked with Dee before. Like maybe, she's new to the industry. Maybe this is just, she doesn't quite understand it, but like, do you want to blow this opportunity? Do you want to miss out on being the lead in this movie, or running a makeup department, or like being the head stuntman? Like, and you're like, well, no, of course not. Like, oh, what the hell? Yeah, I can pay. It's $1,000. That's fine. They're going to reimburse me,
I get there. I land in Jakarta, and I have my contact, and I have a person driving me around, and you identify this is the moment where the con is actually making some money.
You arrive, a driver picks you up at the airport. The driver is a known accomplice. It's been the same person repeatedly for the last 5 years, who says, hi, I'll be your driver and your guide. I'll be taking you to your hotel, but I'm sorry to detail you, but you're going to have to front this too. Like, I'm sorry, there must have been some mix up, but it's going to be $1,000 for the next 3 days. Like, could you go get it out of an ATM? I need local currency because, I'm a freelancer. I'm sorry, but don't, just add it to your tab. It'll be fine. He takes you to the hotel. And in a lot of cases, the hotel is actually covered. So this is a very clever part of the scam. And I don't know exactly if there was some side scam happening between the con artist and like various hotels around Jakarta, but in a lot of cases,
unconfirmed. Got it. Because that was a question that a lot of people had was the hotel in on
unconfirmed.
Unconfirmed. Got it.
So then the next day, the driver picks you up, and often it's like, we're scouting locations today, or I want you to go to this place where we're going to be shooting. And let's say, with the actors often didn't get this far into it. A lot, we can talk a little bit about, there's like a really creepy component to the scam that relates to the actors. But let's say with trainers, so a trainer like Eddie, they would be like, okay, it's a movie that takes place in the jungle, and we want to have like the actors trained like in situ. So I'm gonna take you to some temples, and you're gonna go to this, and like, you tell us what you're gonna need to like really get these people in character to be in this like action adventure movie. And So you spend a whole day driving around and it'll be like, okay, well, the entrance to this park is like $50. And then it'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, the regional government demands a $200 permit. And of course, he's always got the paperwork for it. So it's like, here's your receipt for this $200 permit you paid to like the Jakarta Tourism Board. And then like a day or two into it, people start to be like, okay, but when am I going to meet the director or like a producer or somebody? But meanwhile, like D-Back is just calling you at the end of every day being like, fabulous locations. Isn't it amazing there? And like, and if you question it, if you start to say like, I don't know, D, like I haven't met anybody. There's just this Indonesian guy driving me around taking my money. And she would be like, oh, Eddie, like, do you not trust me? Like, do you not want this job? That's fine because you can just get on a plane and go home. And like, I've got 3 more guys coming over tomorrow. And there's this real good cop, bad cop thing that happens where as soon as people start to get suspicious, she puts you on the back foot. And it's just like, I always had my doubts about you anyway. Like I knew I shouldn't have given you this opportunity. And then what are you going to do as the person looking for
I'm
Craig?
blowing it. I'm blowing it. Here's all my money. Here's all my money. Let's hear from Eddie's skepticism in that sort of monetary exchange.
The guy told Eddie that he was going to need cash to pay for various things, like the driver and some contacts they'd meet along the way. $1,000 should cover it. This cash, it goes without saying, would be repaid. But it needed to be exchanged into Indonesian rupiahs.
So I give him like $1,000 and I'd go exchange. And I just like looked him in the eye and I was like, listen, can I trust you to bring the money back? He's like, absolutely, sure. I'm like, no, can I trust you? And I just like kind of lock eye contact. There's a different style of eye contact, right? That you kind of just do that. You lock in, like, don't mess with me, right? Bring my money back. And he brought it back like an hour later.
Eddie felt good about that. The guy was trustworthy.
I was confused on this one. Did Eddie's judo eye contact trick save him from losing money on the scam?
No, Eddie lost money.
Oh God. Eddie's terrifying, by the way. Okay, Eddie is the sweetheart, but I would not want to be on his bad side. And I'm thinking about all of the ex-military people the Con Queen has targeted because of, as you said, these military ops that are happening over there, supposed military training ops. Were you ever concerned that the Con Queen was going to get taken out by like an assassin or something, but like Eddie was going to get over there vigilante style before you could end your story?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. I mean, in fact, we have a former SAS, New Zealand ex-SAS guy who appears in episode 8, I believe. We call him Tony. That's not his real name. He was like, Josh, you and me, we're going to Jakarta and we're going to wrap these guys up. And I was like, wait, whoa, I'm a journalist. I cannot be party to murder or physical. Like, I mean, even though like part of me is like, wow, that would be a great podcast episode, right? Like I can't actually be abetting murder or like physical harm.
Not season 1. Save it for season 2. Yeah.
We got to raise the stakes.
Are the victims disproportionately male or female, or what did you find there? As you said, they use some lurid tactics traditionally.
I would say disproportionately male. However, there were quite a few women. I think the scam also evolved over time. I think as the perpetrators became more confident in the success of it, because I think no one could have envisioned it would be this successful. You can't imagine that like a group of individuals sat around in like a smoky club in Jakarta 8 years ago and we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do for the next 7 years. We're going to call people and pretend to be D-Backish, and we're going to get them to fly to Indonesia, and they're going to hand over cash, and it's going to work, and we're going to make millions, and no one will catch on. Like, it sounds fucking batshit.
Yeah.
That's what it worked. Anyway, so like they had to evolve the scam, which meant like you couldn't only target stuntmen, you couldn't only target actors, you couldn't only target makeup artists. So when they were in like the makeup artist realm, it's going to be more disproportionately women. Or when it was photographers for a while, you're going to get some women. But over the long arc of the scam, it was more men. And that's because there was I believe that the mastermind behind the thing had a thing for handsome men and like trolled a lot of the victims on Instagram. Like, so trainers, stuntmen, ex-military, bit player actors, always very handsome and always very in shape. And I think because, there's a sexual component, let's say.
Eddie leads you to realize just how many layers of the onion sort of there are to this. It leads to Mandy Martin, who leads you to Heather. And Heather's the first time you realize that it's not just money that people are losing from this situation, but they're also receiving a little psychological damage long term from this con.
I remember driving through this, what looked like a township, and thinking, I'm a single woman on my own. I don't speak the language. It's getting dark. I can't get anyone to call me. I'm really scared now. And I remember at one point I had one hand on my backpack and the other hand on the door. And I was at this point crying my eyes out and saying to the driver, get me back to my effing hotel right now. I'm really scared. And so I was then pleading at him, just saying, like, please help me. Where are you taking me? Why are we not going back to the hotel? And at this point, my Waze app was telling me that I wasn't going back to my hotel address.
Her episode 2 stands alone. It's like it's a beautiful piece of art that you guys assembled there. It's an amazing episode, and her story is obviously harrowing. Was this the sort of saddest consequence?
I mean, I think that one, we knew when we talked to Heather that her story was so powerful. But one, because she was such a vivid storyteller, but she was so deeply affected by it. We were talking to her 3 years after she went, and she was still, she's still today very hurt by it. And I think, as fun as this story sounds when we talk about it, and it is a crazy, fun, like cocktail party story, like people were badly damaged by this. And Heather is not unique. I think she was unique in her ability to tell it. And because she's a woman, there's a very different perspective of being a single young woman alone in a foreign country, being driven around by a man you don't know, because she in her head is thinking like, am I going to be raped? Am I going to be murdered? I don't think most of the men thought that. They just thought like, oh God, this sucks. I'm being ripped off. Like she thought her life was in danger. I don't want to mention his name, but there's another actor who I've been talking to recently who's not in the show, who reached out when he heard the show. And he was, he's having a really hard time with this because he's like, I'm 40 years old. I've been doing this for a long time. About 10 years ago, I gave up on the idea of a break, and I'm just busting my ass trying to write scripts. And I obviously love this business, and I'm more, but like, I don't believe anymore that I'm going to get discovered. And then Doug Liman drops into my life out of the blue and says like, this is it. And he's like, for 3 days, I'm telling my wife, like, I'm on top of the world. Like, holy shit, this thing that I've given up on, I've been like bar backing and like doing shitty jobs. And here this guy comes in and restores this hope that I have. And for 3 days, I believed my life. And then suddenly it's all taken out from under me. And like, he was lower than he had ever been. He was like, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was like, this person stole something so valuable from me. Like I will never feel this way again.
People sacrifice so much. You move away from your family, you do this impossible thing, you work awful jobs. And when you get a phone call like that, it is identity affirming. It is everything to get that phone call. Have you heard from Heather?
Yeah, I talked to Heather quite a bit. The good news here is, there's some exceptions, like that actor I was just talking about, who I don't know will ever be the same again. Heather is doing great. She just was the head makeup artist on some, I think it's a Hulu or a Starz series. Eddie's doing great. Eddie is currently in Budapest training the cast of Halo. So
nice.
The good news is that a lot of these people are okay.
Yeah.
Not all of them.
You mentioned IMDb's role in this, and that, so many agency people were fooled because of the gold standard of IMDb. If a picture or a movie is on IMDb, that gives it, reverence, that gives it sort of validation. Have you spoken to anybody there and inquired about their efforts to make sure that a post is backed by the people it's being backed by? Because that seems to be a huge component of this con.
I think that the masterminds of this scam were not actually, in a lot of cases, completely making things up. So like, it wasn't that IMDb was being fooled so much. Often I think what would happen is that whoever was trolling IMDb would look for like a completely obviously in development project, meaning like even unlikely to get made. Sometimes you're like, you go to a director's page and there's like 14 things in development, and you can like pick the one where it's like probably not happening or definitely not happening now. And would then use that and would then look at the page for that project and be like, okay, here's the producer on that. And then here's a sub producer who works with that producer, and then working it like a phone tree almost. So it would be like, there was always some bit of truth. Like, yes, some of these projects were completely made up, but in a lot of cases they weren't.
Got it. I think that like it's just so fun to hear about the fake made up movies and the fake made. I was imagining some fake movie art on IMDb.
Oh, not on IMDb, but I have PDFs from.
Oh,
like
do you?
The master.
Send it over. We need it. We need it on our website. I need to see the master poster.
Omri Rose, who's an actor in episode 3, who talks the master. Yeah, Omri's got a great voice. It's like the one-legged blind judo master.
Yeah.
Aaron was a versatile and renowned MMA athlete, combining his kickboxing skills with several disciplines, including his native samba, ballroom, intricate ballet, and tap. One day, as he was getting ready for an MMA competition, a mysterious and sudden accident left him almost dead. But when he got up, a Sifu taught him the art of Tai Chi. After years of silent and resilient practice, Aaron was able to get to his feet and be whomever he wanted to be, even if his other leg was amputated.
Wait, am I getting this right? He's a one-legged tap dancing Tai Chi master?
It's the funniest moment. So one common theme on all the podcasts that I've had on the show, something I hear over and over again, is that like, healing or reparations or any of it comes through transparency when people open up. And it again comes up on your podcast in the form of Carly's post.
Hey guys, I don't normally do this, but I had a pretty scary experience recently that I feel compelled to share in hopes that it may be able to help others.
She was telling everyone, thousands of followers, what happened.
I was recently victim to a highly elaborate international business scam. I flew to Indonesia under the impression that I was being hired for a photography assignment. Arriving in Jakarta, Indonesia, things escalated, potential kidnapping heist. And I'm pretty shaken up by the whole experience, but at the end of the day, I'm happy to be safe, and I'm back in the US, and yeah, thanks guys for listening.
How important was Carly's post to the unmasking of all of this and to your investigation?
Hugely important, because I should mention that like one reason I think this worked for so long is because people who fall for scams are ashamed. I mean, any of us would be, right? You come back, especially this one, I think you paid your way to Jakarta and you lost a couple grand and you come back, and like, that's not a story you want to tell people. So like, the part of the brilliance of this con, and I hate to use the word brilliance for something that was like nefarious, but still it is, that like people don't want to talk about it. So the word doesn't spread. And I think one reason, I'm jumping slightly ahead here, but like Deb Snyder wanted to talk to us, for instance, is some of the powerful people who were impersonated were like, you know what, fuck this. Like, I'm going to talk about it because I know that the victims don't want to. So what Carly, this photographer, did was very helpful to people. So she posted this thing, and she's got quite a large following, and it pinged around the world, and it told people, I'm not alone in this. And I think once people started to come out and understand that, like, because you probably, if it happened to you or me, you might think you're the only person, because you're like, this thing is so weird. Like, there's no way that like 100 people fell for this, or 5 people. You're probably like, I'm the dumb sucker who fell for this. And it was a practical joke. So Carly puts this thing out, and like people start immediately messaging her like, oh my God, that happened to me. Oh my God, that happened to me. And suddenly Carly becomes like the Pied Piper a little bit. I think we call her on the show. Mm-hmm. It's suddenly apparent how large this is, almost overnight.
And let's be clear, if I'm Carly, I'm telling everybody about the role I just booked and how I'm like, leading up to it. Like, listen to this. I'm going down to Jakarta. I'm going to be in India. I'm going to learn how to fight. Like, I can't imagine the letdown after that. I cannot imagine. Josh, you are an expert at investigating the con queen, but I have one more test for you here. You'll notice the pod merch behind me. I'd like to get some Chameleon merch up on that wall, but first I'm going to test your investigative skills with a segment we call Pod or Not Pod. I'm going to give you 3 podcasts. 2 podcasts are real, 1 is fake. Can you spot the concast? Is the name of this game. Let's see how your bullshit meter is after 1 season of Chameleon. Are you ready for Pod or Not Pod?
I'm ready.
Okay, 2 podcasts are real, 1 is fake. If you get it correct, this Chameleon lunchbox for all the take your lunch to work actors that got conned will go up on our wall. I can also see about getting you one of these. It's really nice and insulated. 2 pods are real, 1 is fake. Spot the con. Are you ready? First podcast, Scam Wow. 108 episodes. 2 female comedians walk you through the best scams ever, from current events to historic mobsters and everything in between. Scam Wow. Number 2, Catch Me If You Cast. Father and son duo team up weekly to break down some of the world's greatest grifts ever conceived, from small town heists to big city scams. That's Catch Me If You Cast, 81 episodes. The Creep Dive, 68 episodes. Conversations on the lesser-known details of some of the most bizarre headlines, from con artists to encounters with supernatural. We delve deeper than any normal person has time to. 68 episodes. The Creep Dive, Catch Me If You Cast, or Scam Wow. Find the con cast in those 3.
One more time. Give me one more, just the titles.
Yeah. Scam Wow.
Okay.
Catch Me If You Cast.
Okay.
The Creep Dive.
I'm going to go with the fake is Catch Me If You Cast.
Oh, he gets it. Are you kidding me? Well done. The only one that had a nod to your podcast, you mentioned it a lot on your show. Catch Me If You Can comes up quite a bit. Catch Me If You Cast is bullshit. What gave it away?
Actually, nothing. I mean, I was like, up until I said that, I was like equally likely to say all 3 of them.
Scamwile's great. They do a great 2-part series on the Fire Festival. That's a really good pod. Scamwile, check it out. There's a lot of.
I think. Yeah, I don't know what it was. I think I felt like it was the worst pun of the 3, even though all 3 are bad.
It's not a podcast if there's not a bad pun in the title.
Yep.
The Con Queen's dethroning begins, as you mentioned, when she messes with the wrong crowd, and that is powerful ass women in Hollywood. Deb Snyder, who you interview, hooks up with one of the victims, and they get some of your best audio on the podcast.
Hi. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you? I'm so sorry. I was kind of running errands.
No. I'm always sporadic when I like the energy and the conversations. I go back to it and just sort of rekindle. Okay, so can we have a small kind of chat right now, given the circumstance with Jeff's low battery and me being in a park?
Yes, absolutely. I whatever's easiest for you.
You know, first thing we do is when we ask someone in an interview what their expectations are, it would be money. What is your expectation of that?
Honestly, like I would do 10 grand a month.
That's it? Okay. Because, okay. Then you'll be happy to note it's 5 times the amount.
That's the Con Queen.
That is
the Con Queen. What do we hear? We hear a female voice, and your first sort of like Kaiser Sose moment of the podcast comes when, first of all, it's not a network of people. It's one person. That's a huge moment for us. And then the second jaw dropper is it's not a woman, even though we've been hearing this woman's voice. It's actually this guy. And the con tactics are all over this piece of tape. Like, this is a really good lesson for people. That the negging you talk about is a tactic. Negging is a tactic. If someone is doing that sort of like, oh, you only want that much, like that's a red flag. Like, people don't actually do that in Hollywood. The other big one was like, there's always a weird time restraint in these cons.
Yep.
That is a big tactic of cons, and you kind of delve into it in your Thanksgiving episode, that like they use it as a sort of disarming mechanism so that you're not thinking straight. We need you there in 2 weeks, or my phone's about to die. Like, that's again a red flag. This is stuff that we can learn from. Are there other sort of con tactics?
I mean, Deb Snyder says, like, in a non-arrogant way, like, I am never going to call the like makeup department head or the stuntman or the like, even really the leads. Like, I mean, Of course she's going to get to know the leads of the process, but she's never going to randomly call a lead and book them for a role. And then, one thing that fake Deb Snyder was doing, and we alluded to the sex earlier, was like having actors do scenes on the phone. So she's just like, a producer First of all, a producer is never going to ask you to audition on the phone. Like that's the director's job, or like a casting director. You're never going to audition for a producer on the phone. Also, you're never going to act out a sex scene on the phone or even in person, right? Like, I mean, there was just like, there's a lot of things that seem very obvious, but like when you want to roll badly enough, actors, and we're now cutting to the sexual chase here. Like actors had phone sex with fake power women like Deb Snyder and Dee Dee Gardner. And I mean, any number of those women that the con artist, who, as you said, is a man, was impersonating, would like push it to a point where if the actor or a stuntman, some of the like male characters were willing to push, kind of testing the waters, like how comfortable are you with me? How badly do you want this job? And it would kind of like slowly open the door to like, okay, now I want you to actually act this out with me. And I'm going to play the female lead and you're going to play the male lead. And we're getting in an elevator and we're making out. But then would like start making kissing noises. So you're just like, haha, this is hilarious. No one would do it. A lot of dudes did this.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the elevator. We're going to go up to the room and have sex or whatever. So I'm like, okay, we're not going to get there in this phone call audition. So, okay, we make it to the elevator and she starts making this, she's like, okay, you're going to kiss me. And I'm like, okay, like, mwah, whatever. She's like making these like weird sexual moans. And she goes, no, like I want it passionate. And I'm like, making fake kissing noises. And I'm like, this is fucking weird. Like I feel it. And I told her, I was like, yo, this is like sexual harassment right here.
So he uses sex as a shaming mechanism for silencing the victims. Is that accurate? Is that how sex is used in this? And also a gauge of sort of your complicit.
I think it's both of those things. I think it's also like one of the payoffs of the scam for the scammer. I mean, we know that he's gay and has a thing for hot guys. And I think I don't think like in the beginning of the scam, he had any idea that it was going to evolve to this point where he would be able to get these like attractive men to have phone sex with him. But I think once it started working, it became part of the addiction for him. That like clearly the scam was an addiction because he was doing it at such a furious rate. And people are like, it's so much work for the amount of money he's getting. I'm like, but in volume, it starts to be a lot of money. It just can't be about money though, because it's too hard. And I think control and domination and humiliation was part of it. And I think sex became a big part of it for him. But you're right. It operates on a couple levels because it's also blackmail. Like you kind of can't come after me now. And it like furthers the shame spiral so that person becomes less likely to report it, more likely to stay on the hook. Because I think a big part of this is also, there's the thing in business called the sunk cost fallacy, which is like once you've spent money on something, you're more inclined to stick with it, even if it's a failure. And businesses make this mistake all the time. They're like, we're going to start a hula hoop division. And like the hula hoop is a giant fucking failure. But they're like, but we spent $1 billion on the hula hoops. We can't give up on it. And like the consultants are like, yeah, but we're not selling any hula hoops. But we got to do more advertising on the hula hoops. Well, so this happens in scams too. You're like, I've already gone to Indonesia and spent this money. And okay, now the producer's asking me to do this weird shit. But like, why would I quit now? I've already done so much. And I think you get deeper and deeper into it and it's very hard to pull out of it, And I think also pulling out of it means you have to accept that it's a scam and then the shame begins. So it's like really creepy and layered and devious, this thing.
That's the first time I am able to understand, Greg.
I took 6 trips in total.
That fact knocked us over. The Polish makeup artist Anna, way back at the beginning of the show, she went to Jakarta twice, and we couldn't believe that. But Greg, he flew across the world on his own dime 6 times.
Can you say how much money you're out?
Between travel expenses, incidentals, airfare, and then legal expenses in the neighborhood of $80,000 to $100,000.
Yeah, so Greg is this, again, aspiring screenwriter, and screenwriting is every bit as difficult as acting to break into, and there's 20,000 screenwriters for every script that's produced, and Greg's been trying for a long time, like busting his ass to work it. And again, here's someone who's like, we found you on this screenwriting forum, we think you're great, come to Jakarta. At that point, the con artist was pretending to be the China Film Group, which for a while was his prime. Before he moved to Hollywood, he was actually using China because I think it's a murkier scene. Everybody knows China's got a lot of money and invested in movies. So he was pretending to be a Chinese producer. And Greg actually, made 6 trips. 6 trips.
It's still not as sad, though, as the previous audio I played. The actor who's, wanted to stay anonymous, and you catch up with him. He's like, he had a promising little trajectory going. And then this situation sort of like, he's not in the game right now. He's not doing it.
He's getting back into it.
Good.
But I mean, your point stands. He basically quit the business for 2 years, or at least was just not comfortable, confident to go back out there, because I think obviously the belief is shattered. We talked about that earlier, but I think the sex stuff was also just so psychologically damaging to him that it was beyond, because he says, you're referring to, he talks about, I would never equate this to Me Too because women were fully raped, and this is part of this business and it's terrible. But he says maybe this is how it still works. Maybe you have to do shady shit to succeed. And that's not a thing that I want to do.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. We're here to fill the role of looking for great pods for you. Let us be your podcast liaisons. And if you like the show, please subscribe. Visit thepodspotter.com and on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for lots of good stuff. And please leave a review. That helps us so much. Subscribe, rate, review, and judge us on Apple Podcasts. We release every Monday with a review of a wonderful new pod, and we're going to keep going. We're going to keep plowing ahead. So please keep listening. If you have suggestions for pods for us to feature, like Tessa did. Tessa suggested this pod that we're listening to today. Please drop us a note on any social media platforms. So this would be a place to say spoiler warning.
Okay.
It was just announced that we got the Con Queen. You assisted taking down the Con Queen, wrapped it up in a nice, neat 10 episodes. Congratulations. What has the past 2 days been like after hearing this?
Well, so first I want to slightly clarify. We discovered and unmasked the suspect. His identity was known. The private investigation team hired by the Hollywood producers, K2 Investigations, they've been working on this for years and were pursuing him. However, that investigation seemed to have been stalled, or at least he was continuing to operate. I mean, 3 weeks ago, I was hearing from people who fake Doug Lyman was scamming, and we were furiously hunting him because I felt some responsibility to the victims. And my feeling was I know this individual will be arrested, but will it be in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or a year? Maybe we can help stop him by putting his face out there, by saying pulling the mask off the villain and saying the emperor has no clothes. It's just this sad little man in Indonesia. Actually, he was living in England. So I don't want to take credit for his arrest because I think that was coming anyway, but we did, I hope help apply pressure to the law enforcement.
Yeah. In reading everything, it sounds like there's 3 people attacked. There's 3 it's you guys, it's the FBI, and it's K2, the firm hired by the powerful women in Hollywood. FBI and K2 are dragging their heels, and your podcast and the information that you bring, would that be fair to say?
I think,
help?
Yeah, I don't,
push it along.
Maybe the FBI would argue with our take, but I like to believe that the pressure that the podcast applied, because it was becoming quite popular, and certainly in Hollywood people were getting pissed, that I think expedited the process, I hope. And also I hope it turned the tables and scared this guy for once, because he had the upper hand for 7 years, and even if for a week or two he was running scared a little bit, I mean, I'm not supposed to, I say on the show journalists are supposed to be objective, but I was so far in the bag for the victims on this show, and I just felt like I owed it to them to try and help. And so
it's very
anyway,
clear that you get personal with it with the last episode where you talk directly to. It's very clear that you are. Are you in the he's not a genius camp? What is your feeling on this guy?
I mean, it's hard for me not to Genius. I don't like. It's a brilliant con executed perfectly over a long time. Is he a genius? Like, I thought so, but then people who knew him better took issue with that and felt like he was just like really talented at. I mean, I think Vanessa says he's just a professional catfisher. He's a really good catfisher, but he's he's a hell of a project manager. I mean, like if you can imagine the logistics that went into the past 7 years of his life, it's mind-boggling. But yeah, I mean, to very long-winded answer to your question. Yeah, the last 48 hours have been nuts. So basically, we finished this episode, which we pretty much produced down to the wire. The episodes post on Thursday. So we finished it like Wednesday morning. And then that night, like at like 7 p.m., news breaks out of England that he's been arrested. The suspect who we unmasked 2 weeks before that. So we're like, shit. Okay.
Jesus.
Get your microphone back out. So then I like, I didn't have my booth wasn't here. And I'm just like, so I just I just went to that corner back there and just like put a blanket over my head and was like, and we, you heard it on the show. What we did, we played the outro with bad checks and then did like a record scratch. We're like, actually, hold on a second, because today we found out. And I mean, hugely satisfying conclusion. I remember back when the show started, Vanessa and I were terrified that we wouldn't have an ending because we knew that K2 and the FBI were very likely to solve this, but we didn't know when. We're like, we have to land this plane somehow. And thank God we did. And then the arrest was just like, oh, that was great. But of course, now there's been this huge media storm and like we're trying to obviously get the word out about the show.
I got to tell you though, that and Greg kind of confirms it. My fear listening to your podcast the entire time is that the way we deify, these stories, these con artists, 5 years from now, he'll be out of jail. And I'm not worried that he's going to make, Greg's movie. I'm worried that, someone is going to make a movie of his story and, he's going to benefit from this. Everything that he sort of wanted, everything he conned, will come to fruition. How do we stop this from happening? How do we stop?
Man. I mean,
I've seen Molly's Game, man. I know how the story ends. Like us having this conversation, me interested in it right now. It's all fueling.
Clearly, this is a person who wanted to be important, who wasn't able to achieve that using legitimate goals, and just needs to be validated with some kind of power. And so, I mean, are we complicit of that? Of course we are. Do I think there will be a movie and a TV show? Probably. I don't think he'll benefit financially because he's going to be in prison for the next, I hope 10 years or so. But certainly, have we helped make him famous? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll tell you, like, I'm talking to reporters from Asia. Like, he's in Indonesia, the story has become huge. Shit. And of course, a lot of what's happening is people coming out of the woodwork and emailing him being like, wait a second, that guy? He screwed me over in 2011. Like, I literally heard from the first person he met when he got out of prison in 2011, when he pulled off the fake, we don't even have time for the fake Miss Teen Indonesia pageant.
Don't even have time for it. There's too many cons that this guy pulled. Just know that there's Julio Iglesias is mixed up in it, and there are bomb threats, and there are all kinds of stuff. This guy is a serial con artist that has been taken down. And if the long con is make a movie in 2030 about his life, he's on the right path. But Josh, what you can do, and Vanessa, you preemptively make the movie, tell the story, hire all the actors and production people that he's fucked over, get them on as the best PR possible, like all of these people that have been screwed, make the movie, and then he can't benefit from it when the movie comes out 10 years from now.
I've had exactly that idea. I mean, we talked about how this thing came to us. Like, obviously one of the people who brought it to me was a producer who would love to make the TV show. And one thing I said months ago was exactly that, was like, how great would it be if you could make this into a TV show and the entire staff are victims of the scam? Like, that would be brilliant. Yes. We got to cast all these actors. We got to makeup artists. We got stuntmen.
That's the Hollywood ending.
Guards.
That's the Hollywood ending.
Totally.
You got it all right there, and everybody's jumping at it. You think he's listening to your pod, and you talk to him, obviously in the last episode. Do you think he's one of the 1,500 some reviews of your podcast on iTunes? Is there a shot? I have looked at the names, and oh, really? Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you. I didn't look at the name. Well, partly because
a lot of the names.
I mean, you have a podcast. It's a slippery slope to start reading reviews because I don't it starts to influence your thinking, and you don't want it to influence your thinking because you're like. But also, when I look at the 1 star, I'm like, I can see 3 and 4 stars. Like maybe you don't love my show, but like, do you really hate it? Like, who hates the show? I can't imagine you being so mad about. And I'm like, who's mad about this show? He would be mad about the show.
I disagree. Not for the long con. He's 5-star in it. He's pushing it out there. Right?
Wait, so who's writing the 1 stars?
I don't know those people. I think those are disgruntled actors in Hollywood, probably. By the way, with the FBI and with investigating a cyber terrorist, what sort of extra security measures have you taken over the past year and a half?
The answer is I'm like lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff. You had to get lots of firewall things and just stuff.
Oh yeah. I got a team. I got a team of security back here. The truth is actually nothing. But I'm not clicking on any links in emails. Like I'm not clicking on links.
Got it.
I'm not accepting any friend requests.
Are you at least changing your passwords like once a month at least?
I shouldn't be using Chameleon for all my accounts.
Can you tease season 2 for us?
Yeah, well, so season 2, Chameleon is an anthology series. So every season will be a different con artist. So season 2 will be hosted by an outstanding journalist named Trevor Aronson, who is an FBI specialist. It's about a Botox scam. Let's put it that way. A weight loss and Botox clinic scam in Las Vegas with some perhaps not on the completely up and up FBI agents. Let's put it that way. It's a really glitzy, hilarious scam story that involves the FBI in a less flattering light.
Get it everywhere you get podcasts, I imagine. All the platforms.
All the platforms. I can't favor too many of them.
One of my favorite questions, Josh, is to get what you would consider your piece of audio that would be submitted for the Podcast Hall of Fame when they build the Podcast Hall of Fame in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I imagine. When you walk into the Podcast Hall of Fame, there will be the Chameleon kiosk. And when you hit the red button, what piece of audio from this season would you like to hear? Yeah.
I mean, wow, such a hard. I mean, it feels like it would be hard for that button not to like play a different voice from the con artist. Like you keep pushing it, and you get Deb Snyder. It's like you just never know who you're gonna get. I mean, wow, the Doug Lyman rant in episode 10, which we severely edited, I should say, because we were. I mean, we've been swearing on the show. I'm like not ashamed to drop F-bombs, but man, Doug Lyman was pissed. Doug Lyman was angry that an actor asked him to appear on video, and he just it's incredible. And I think in the arc of the show, it shows the con artist as coming unhinged because he knew the walls were closing in, right? And it's pretty amazing.
You want me to verify who I am? I'm going to fuck you over. If I have to fuck your family, I'll do it. What did you say? The UK has no productions? Read up on Mission Impossible 7 right now. Where is it being produced? You can call the FBI, the police. I'll find you over just because you're fucking racist. And if you have a career again, my name isn't Doug Lyman.
It was pretty close. I've worked with Doug, and it was pretty close.
It was his best. Good yeah, his best impersonation. I hope Doug was listening, and I was like offended on Doug's behalf, but like that, if you can detach from the insanity and sociopathy of that rant, it's kind of hilarious because he's mad. He's allegedly mad that England has been insulted. Doug Lyman, an American.
Are you worried about, last question. I did just want to check in on the sort of rebranding of Gobin as a victim that seems to already be happening. Are you concerned? And we kind of talked about,
I mean, we're like discussing right now, like we're going to do a bonus episode next week to talk about the arrest a little bit. And, I mean, I think this is hard because I don't want to take mental health lightly. And I do think this is a mentally unstable individual. I can't begin to diagnose him. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I just think something's broken in him. Does that give him does that excuse his behavior? Absolutely not. Like this is a guy that needs to be locked up for a period. Now, maybe that's not a traditional prison and maybe that's a psychiatric institution of some kind. I do think the wrong thing to do would be to lock him away somewhere terrible and just neglect him. I think, man, I mean, you heard on the show, both prison officials and friends of his and talk about how they don't think he's redeemable. They just think he's been at this so long and that he's just a con artist forever. But I mean, I like to think everybody can be rehabilitated, and that, you know, somewhere down the road there's a Gobin who can be a productive member of society. But I don't want to cast him as a victim. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
I think I've talked to too many victims. I can't go there.
Yeah. Last 5 minutes of our show. No one is here anymore. No one is listening. They've all finished their commute, or they've finished cooking. And so really, this is just a time for us, Josh, to recite poetry or reveal a secret, anything you'd like about your life, or just, you know, decompress a little bit. And it is the last 5 minutes. No one's listening. I'll go first. And I will share my Doug Lyman story, which seems appropriate. I worked with him on a show, short-lived show called I Just Want My Pants Back. It was an MTV show, and I was a day player, as I am. I had my lines, and at one point we were in that rehearsal process. We're going over the script, and Doug, he's having trouble with the scene. Something's not reading, and he wants, you know, to get something a little clearer from me. And I was just like, "Oh, do you want me to throw in like okay, or yeah, I get it?" And he goes, "No, I just want you to act." And that's the only interaction really I had with Doug. That was the moment. And so we did it again, and I tried just to act it, and okay, moving on. Probably never work with Doug again, but we did that time. Thanks, Doug. No, I just want you to act. Oh, okay. I'll do that. Shut me up. Pretty devastating, but anything to share for your last 5 minutes?
I mean, there's so much to catch. I'm like so overwhelmed and competitive at the moment that, like, if this was a therapy session, I would be saying like how dare all these stories out there report on the arrest of the con queen without giving all credit to the Chameleon podcast. And this morning, I caught myself like word searching Twitter, like just looking for people. And I'm not proud because started to, and I like, okay, like, if it's just you and me, I could tell you that I actually did respond to a couple of where someone was sharing like a BBC story, and I would write under it, I noticed that this doesn't credit the Chameleon podcast with it. And I think I did that like 2 times, and I didn't feel good about it. And then I just stopped.
What's the username? What's the fake? Do you have a fake username? It's not like J. Dean's Elephant Polo at 60.
Badly. Elephant Polo. There's a deep cut.
We didn't talk about Elephant Polo. You don't think you're getting off this interview without talking Elephant Polo? I
am a member of the 2007 or was it 8 World Elephant Polo Championship runner-up squad, the New York Blue. I'm not embarrassed of that at all.
You shouldn't be. It sounds like I'm putting it on my resume under special skills now, just as a conversation starter.
I don't know if you know, this used to be one of my, it's not even a joke line because it's true. I would tell people, I believe I'm the only person in history who's played in the Elephant Polo World Championships and the Quidditch World Cup. Which is true, by the way.
That's amazing. That is How is that not in your intro at sleazy Hollywood parties? Hi, Josh Dean, Quidditch, Elephant Polo. Nice to meet you. Yeah. I would lead with it. I'm just saying, I would lead with it.
I mean, I'm like, how many people, who among us can say that you've done something that literally no one else
No one else. Yeah.
Someone's going to hear this and be like, actually, Josh Dean, I played in 2 Elephant Polo World Championships and 3 Quidditch World Cups, and I won a Quidditch World Cup. My team did not win the Quidditch World Cup either.
Oh my God. It's good stuff. Congrats, man. Congrats on a great first season. I'm just going to end with the scary piece of audio from the prison securities officer who knew Gobin when he did some time, and what they had to say about the special circumstances. They had murderers, they had rapists, but there was a special sort of deference paid towards con artists.
Chippenham is a maximum security prison, home to many terrible people, murderers and rapists and terrorists. But con artists were considered to have a special kind of insidiousness.
Prison officials would keep their distance with con artists. They would limit interaction with them because they cannot be fully reformed. She said they'll always try to take advantage of us if we let our defense down. We can be friends with them, but we should never allow ourselves to be lulled by what they say.
This has been the Pod Spotter, where we showcase the pods that you need to know about. But if you have one that we should know about, like Tessa, who let us know about Chameleon, Hollywood Con Queen. Thank you, Tessa. Please let us know. Visit thepodspotter.com or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram at thepodspotter. Thanks, everybody. This has been Zach Robidas. The Pod Spotter is created by the Price Brothers, produced by Oink Inc. Radio, associate producer Tori Adams, and is recorded and produced at Baker Sound in Philadelphia.